I don't know if you've ever spoken about this, so maybe I'm beating a dead horse here, but whatever happened with you and Ethan, like, you guys had that show, The Leftovers, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit. I'm sure he'll see this clip and get like really mad, but honestly, I think we just had like some, at the time, what I thought were minor disagreements, and I never really like paid attention to what he was saying
About content?
No, about Israel,
Okay,
about Israel Palestine.
Yeah.
In the aftermath of October 7, but he'd always been like very pro Palestine.
But you guys stopped way before that.
No, we stopped.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What the
we
fuck?
stopped like around October. That's when we were like, we're not doing Leftovers anymore.
Okay.
So October 2023 is like, I think one of the last episodes we did.
Yeah.
And initially, I think there was a lot of people that were very mad at Ethan, both in my community and also, more importantly, his own community, because he's very progressive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that he cultivated in his audience were like not really with his takes. Like, they didn't really like it.
Yeah.
And I think because there was also anti-Semitism rising at the time, like, he saw that as a major point of concern, understandable. And I assume, I can't know what's in his mind, but I assume that he was like making the assertion that these people that were mad at him all the time weren't mad because they were seeing clips and making up their own minds, but mad for some other reason. Either because they were anti-Semitic or because like someone was priming them to be mad at him. And since our communities had merged at that time because of Leftovers to a certain degree, I think he thought that like my takes were what was causing people to like hate him for what he was saying. And because it's such a touchy subject for a lot of people for understandable reasons, I mean, people are very black and white. And when they hear Ethan say something that like, you know, Joe Biden has said about Israel, Palestine, and they don't investigate it any further, yeah, of course, they're going to be like, oh, you're pro-Israel and you're hiding it. You know what I mean? That's like the immediate assertion. And for a year after that,
I think that this was on the spot, for the record. This is like, I think this is a consistent take that I've held here. I suspect that people will probably get mad at me for even saying this, like for even mentioning Ethan, which, you know, there's not really much I can do. I was asked directly. It wasn't like, I didn't think that Bradley would ask me that, but I'm not going to shy away from responding.
I didn't really investigate what his perspective was. We had a conversation, like last one we had was on my channel, where we had a back and forth and we had some disagreements, but we were on good terms for a year after that, pretty much. And then recently, I forget what it was. I think it was after Israel like decided to invade Lebanon, where I was talking about Hezbollah, which is the militant group, and they're a part of the Lebanese parliament, ultimately, right? Like, they're a political party, and they're effectively the standing military of Lebanon. But it is controversial ultimately, even within Lebanon. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said something like, I don't have any problems with Hezbollah in terms of like their resistance to the state of Israel. I think like this isn't about their, you know, sectarian politics, or this isn't about like their internal affair. Like, I don't give a
right,
because that's not the reason why Israel is bombing Lebanon. They're bombing Lebanon because Hezbollah is retaliating against Israel for what Israel is doing in Gaza.
Right.
And he saw that, and I think that was what triggered him into, like, that was a trigger point where he was like, you're a radical. And then it spiraled out of control. I think he has done numerous streams at that point, like for months and months on end, all the way up until the election, where he was like trying to get me deplatformed.
This is what I was saying. That's why we spoke about being censored more. For you, because I saw that on like something with Twitch, and people then blaming you for like ad revenue and like
that was another community that also has been always up my ass. This is Destiny's community. They've always done the concern trolling, where they're like he'll say some unhinged all the time. They don't have any boundaries, right? But then they will so very easily portray themselves like liberals who are concerned.
I think Ethan did not fully unpack his Zionist mindset framework, so he would repeat Zionist talking points, leading the people to call him a Zionist. He doesn't identify as one, though, and he refused to unpack those talking points as false, so he thinks people are calling him a Zionist simply because he's Jewish and not because he's repeating Zionist talking points. I think that there is some truth to what you're saying, but ultimately, I think like he got so negatively polarized that I don't even know what his attitude is now. And I truly don't know. I actually don't know. I know people will say like, oh, bro, all it would take is for you to watch one of his videos and you'd understand. But like, there's a couple moments of like very stubborn pushback where like I wasn't immediately dismissive. But if it was something that I did not know, if it was someone that I had no idea about, I would just write them off entirely. Like if I didn't know their background, if I didn't have personal connection to them, if I wasn't friends with them, right, at a certain point, I'd be like, the f are you saying? You guys should just talk it out. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not opposed to that at all. But you have to understand something, okay? Before chatter says no, before chatters like starts screaming no, this is post like Ethan trying to deplatform me actively by saying some of the most like hurtful, unhinged things. Like you have to understand, like when you're relying on a website called HasanAbi.com, like unlisted YouTube clips from my own personal supercharged snark community, Destiny's community, where, you know, you're using unlisted links and the title of the unlisted YouTube clip is literally HasanAbi, without ever considering what that looks like to other people that might not even know me, people that might not know me, people that are fans of yours that now have a very weird attitude, a very gross attitude. It's like, I don't use the Islamophobia card quite frequently, but that is fairly Islamophobic. Sam Cedar had a good take on this phenomena. As the atrocities of Israel become more and more apparent, people who grew up thinking of Israel as a positive force in the world will go to extreme lengths to cope with that contradiction. Yeah, I know. That's why I also said that he should talk to Sam Cedar. Like, I privately texted him to say, hey, I don't think you respect me, but you respect Sam, so I think you should talk to him privately, publicly, it doesn't matter.
And they do that very well. So they started this like mass emailing campaign in their Discord to like openly, actively brigade everywhere and take like a year's worth of clips that they had clipped out of context for one whole year. Like, Israel starts bombing Gaza and these motherfuckers are like, all right, what's Hassan saying? Let's start clipping.
Yeah.
And they had it on a website called like HamasAbi. They're calling me like HamasAbi.
Yeah.
And they just had all these clips and they were like they spent spam emails to like advertisers. Like, I went to USC because they wanted me to speak at the college.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I'll do it. Why not? They sent 27,000 emails to USC to try to get me not speak at USC. And it's really interesting because like in the email, I saw the email that they were spamming, and the email was like, he got banned off Twitch for saying a slur, a racial slur, which is true. I did.
What was the slur?
Cracker.
Oh.
But they didn't put that in the email. So they were trying to make it seem like I was this like crazy racist guy, right? And, you know, it's a fairly sophisticated mass brigading campaign. And it didn't really work, but they got some advertisers, I think, like, were scared. Bloomberg wrote a report on it.
Yeah.
Some advertisers were like, well, we don't want to be associated with anything that's controversial. And but at the time they were like claiming that, you know, every advertiser is pulling out of Twitch. Twitch is having an adpocalypse. And Ethan at that same time was also like, you know, kind of egging that on a little bit, where he was like, these guys are really anti-Semitic. They're really radical. They're anti-American scum. That
but
sort
I don't
of
understand
stuff.
this anti-Semitic conversation is like, if you just say anything that's against what they're doing in Israel, just you're anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, there's more nuance to it than that, because like,
it's what it, from my perspective from the outside, it's what it looks like when I see stuff.
No, I understand that. I mean, that's like the average position at this point. And I think that, yes, it is, for the longest time, Israel, both positively and negatively, has been associated with Judaism. It's not a proper conflation. It's false. Saudi Arabia, it does not represent like the entirety of Islam, and Israel does not represent the entirety of Judaism.
Right.
But if every single person that goes on television is saying like, this is the Jewish nation, like, how dare you, you're being anti-Semitic, then yeah, of course people go, okay, maybe it is. Maybe everything they're doing for Judaism and all the Jews love this, when it's not the case.
Right.
Where it's like, there's no full-blown comprehensive monolithic understanding of what Israel is and what it's supposed to be among American Jews, especially. That's not like a real collective ideal at all. But it's presented that way. It's presented that way by people who hate Jews, who want to say, you know, fuck Israel. And it's also being said by people who are pro-Israel and also themselves Jewish, or just pro-Israel and pro-Jewish. Like Jake Tapper says that. Like, I don't think Jake Tapper is secretly a neo-Nazi or something, but he's saying that because it's been a very apt way to deflect criticism, because nobody wants to be offensive, especially in progressive circles. You don't want to be offensive. You don't want to be a mean person. You don't want to offend people. You don't want to be called an anti-Semite. So you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't realize it was like that. It's usually just a way to stop the conversation dead in its tracks.
But so that's interesting though. That
Ethan said on this pod that you were pro October 7. See, that's what I mean. It's like, if you're, look, there's a lot of Ethan haters in this community, okay, especially now. But like, if you're an Ethan fan at this point and you're watching me and you hear the way I talk about Ethan, and then you go back and listen to the way Ethan talks about me, I think that there isn't a parody there, okay? Like, that's it. And I'm not doing that for aesthetic purposes. Like, it is truly just the way I operate. Okay, that's what it is. There is no there's no respect on one side of this equation. It's asymmetrical. Any kind of self-defense is considered the most morally repugnant thing that I could ever do. But Ethan can say whatever the fuck he wants, including playing games that were made by Destiny's community that liken me to fucking Osama bin Laden, or even claim that I've like hid my more radical perspectives, when the first conversation I ever had with Ethan and Gila was on their podcast before we even started our podcast, where I basically described the steps in which 9/11 happened, and he was understanding, because the thing that left from this equation is respect and charity. Okay. And if you look back at the past year before Ethan went on this conquest to like deplatform me and other pro-Palestinian content creators by falsely smearing us, by grabbing onto anything and everything they could, both Ethan and also Destiny and shit. And especially when like Ethan already has a fuck ton of haters. Like I could have just gotten on the fuck Ethan train. You know what I mean? Oh, Leftovers podcast ended because Ethan and I had disagreements on Israel Palestine because he's a huge Zionist. Like I could have done all of that. You know what I mean? That would have been, I'd probably be getting fucking celebrated by Keemstar at that point in the way that Ethan is getting celebrated by Keemstar now. The difference is I don't give a shit about that. I don't think that that's a productive way to approach anything. So he just completely decided to cut off all charitability and all respect and just go on this endless conquest. They're going to clip that. Yeah, they can if they want to. But my point is, I didn't do that because I don't believe that. That's not how I operate. And that's not what I think is like appropriate. Okay. I don't think it's appropriate. And that's my criticism of what Ethan has been doing, which is the inverse of that, the opposite of that. He pulled the fuck Hasan ripcord like he was just holding on to dear life, you know? For a year, I defended him against people in my community that were very upset with some of the things that he was saying. Not really fully paying attention to everything he was saying, but still. And that was because I don't think it was appropriate or productive to just like turn around and just be like, yeah, fuck this guy or whatever. It's stupid. But after all of that, he still turned around and was like, Hasan is a fucking radical terrorism supporter. Like, that's crazy. At first it was hurtful, and now it's just like, I don't even know what to say, you know?